supporting details, 2 facts, and a closing sentence for your paragraph. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool beans.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I want you to quietly think about what you're seeing in this picture, okay? Just what do you see? Give me a hand up when you can describe what you see. Prince, what do you see? Littering. There's lots of trash on the ground. Have you ever seen this happen before? Yes? Where have you seen, give me a hand. Where have you seen this happen?
I've seen it at like the place where they put all the trash.
So like a landfill? Okay.
I see garbage the size of Texas.
Oh my goodness. Are you referring to like that big mass of trash that's in the ocean that's like the size of almost a state? Yes. Where else have you seen pollution or littering?
At the park.
At the park. Where have you seen it?
I see it on the grass.
On the grass when you're outside and out and about. So you guys have described what's happening already. You've talked about how there's trash on the ground, people are littering. And I have a question. Do you think it always looked like this? Who caused this trash to be on the ground? Ganale?
I probably would think people will start trashing there. I see lots, so probably it started too late, so nobody saw it still, and then they started to see it, see the ground.
So she's saying that people probably put this trash here, and then it also, she sees water. So people may not have noticed all the trash at first, but when the water came down, it may have made it even more apparent that there was so much litter on the ground. So let's go to this photo. Give me a hand when you can tell me what you see or what you notice in this picture. Levi, what do you see?
Traffic.
Lots of traffic. What else? Smoke. Isabel?
I see snow.
Mm-hmm.
Smoke is bad for the air because if you breathe it, it's gonna enter our body.
Isabel, that was a beautiful explanation. Did everyone hear that?
Yeah.
She said there's smoke in the air and it's bad for the environment because when we breathe that in, it makes us very unhealthy. So have you guys seen this happen before when you're riding around with your families? Have you seen maybe smoke coming from cars?
Yes.
You have? Brianna, what did you have to say?
One day I was walking to the park and I see that.
So like when we're walking or around cars or on our way somewhere, we might see the smoke exiting the cars, and we know that, what's that word that starts with a P? It pollutes our air. So do you think our environment always looked like this? No. What do you think is, or who do you think is causing these changes, Ruby?
People who made the cars.
People who made the cars. And what do they make them? What do cars use that are harming the environment, Sloan? Gas, those fuels, right?
Electric car. It doesn't technically help the environment, but it makes it. It doesn't exactly help it, but it makes less gas come up because there are more electric cars now.
Oh,
Than gas.
that's such a great point. So Sloan says that if we had more electric cars, we would minimize the amount of fumes and pollution that the gas cars are leaving in the environment. Yes, you have a question. What's your question?
When we walk around Zambia, since there's a lot more cars there, I see more gas everywhere. Everywhere I look, I see gas, so you should just stay in an apartment.
That is such a great point. She says, well, Miss Brown, I haven't lived in Georgia all my life. I lived in New York. And New York has lots more cars. And so I see lots more pollution coming from the cars because New York is a right, so it is story time. I read this book to you a few days ago, and we reviewed this book a while back, and it's called S is for Save the Planet. We read this book and we talked about ways that people could help and harm the environment. But today we're going to read a book called what? It's Earth Day. And it's March, but Earth Day is coming up. It takes place, who remembers that date?
April 2nd.
We're close, April 22nd. So we're going to read this story called It's Earth Day. And can you tell me a little bit more about this character that you see on the front? What kind of character do you think this is? His eyes are really big. What do you see him doing? Look very closely. If you can't tell here, you can look up here. What do you see him doing? Aiden? Ooh, he's picking up trash. So what do you think this story is going to be about, just based on the cover? Earth Day, and what else? Maybe collecting trash or finding ways to help the environment and not harm it. So let's take a look. Are we ready? Today we learned all about Earth Day. It is a special day. It is when we celebrate our planet. We watched a movie about Earth's climate. Climate is how hot or cold it usually is outside. The Earth is getting hotter. If the Earth is getting hotter, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think that's going to impact, Brianna?
Probably there's going to be a fire.
Okay, so when the Earth becomes hotter, then potentially there could be more forest fires. Okay, what's another thing that might happen? Maybe more coal is going to be used because we need those fossil fuels to run our air conditioning systems, right? What else?
The water will get too hot and people die.
It could impact the animals on our Earth. Like if the water gets warmer, then that can harm the fish in the ocean, or even other animals can get. Yeah, that can take place. And you said something about the Arctic. What about the Arctic might change?
Since it's really cold there and the animals to be cold there, need the weather to be really cold. If it got really hot there, then it would be too hot for them and we might die.
So yes, again, when the Earth is getting warmer, it can harm the animals. And think about the Arctic. It's a cold place. If it gets warmer, what's going to happen to those glaciers? They're going to start melting. All right. The Earth is getting hotter, and the ice at the North Pole is melting. That's where polar bears live. Yikes! I have to help slow down the melting. Dad, I asked, what can we do to stop the ice from melting? Let's find out, he said. It turns out that the energy we use doing everyday things like driving cars and watching TV are making the Earth warmer. We have to save energy, I said, so I turned off the computer and all the lights as fast as I could to save energy. Be careful, Dad said. The next morning, when little sister was brushing her teeth, I turned the faucet off. Saving water helps the polar bears, I said. I didn't want to take the school bus the next morning, but Mom said the buses save energy because all of the moms and dads don't have to drive their cars. Good thinking, Mom. After school, my friends and I collected cans, bottles, and newspapers, and then took them to the recycling center. We put the money we earned in a big jar to give to a Critterville charity called We Love Polar Bears. So, little did I know, you can earn money when you are recycling. So What is that going to do for our environment? Growing trees would help us what?
For the air, not
Helping
to
the
be
air.
polluted.
So trees can help our the quality of our air. Also, lots of trees get chopped down. So when people volunteer to replant those trees, it really can help our environment as well. Trees are good for the earth. They help suck up the bad stuff in the air. It was hard work. Come on, guys, I said. Do it for the earth and for the polar bears. Our teacher thought I should dig smaller holes. So he's having a good time. He's really enjoying planting those trees. We made signs that said, reduce, reuse, recycle. Then we put the signs up everywhere to remind everyone how they can help too. So, is that something we can do to help our environment? That night I couldn't sleep, so I went to the kitchen for a snack. Then I saw a little sign that said, climate control. That's it, I yelled. I know how to save polar bears. I have to change the climate. The next morning, I got right to work. I made a list just like Mom would do. Next, I drew up the plans just like Dad. Little sister helped collect everything on the list. The most important thing was ice. We need lots of ice. What do you think it's going to do to the ice?
Make water.
Make water? Okay, let's see. I put all the parts together. What is it? Mom asked. It's a climate control machine, I answered. It will cool down the earth and save the polar bears. How does it work? Asked Mom. Well, I said, the fans blow air over the ice and makes the earth air cooler and keeps the ice at the North Pole from melting. And then that will save the polar bears. I put a thermometer on top. I waited for the climate control machine to start working, but my ice kept melting. So I had to borrow ice from everyone in my neighborhood. I worked very hard all day long, but the temperature stayed the same. Finally, after it became dark, it got colder. Hooray! But the next morning, the temperature went back up. The climate control machine doesn't work, I said. It will never save the polar bears. That's not true, said Dad. Because of what we've learned, I've turned off my computer at night. Little sister turns off the water when she brushes her teeth. And we all turn off the lights when we leave the room. Then Dad added, you and your friends collected bottles, cans, and newspapers to recycle. You also planted trees for fresh, clean air. That made me think. Wow, I said, we are all climate control machines because everything we do can help save the earth. Don't forget the
Polar bear.
polar bears. Good job. All right. So, do you know why we celebrate Earth Day?
Oh,
Why do we celebrate?
because we celebrate Earth Day, so we can help out Earth.
So that we can promote helping the earth, promote ways to help other people learn ways to save the earth. So based on the story, what were some examples of things that you and I could do that would help the environment? What are some things we can do based on what we read in the text? What are some things that the characters did? Two things that came from the text? Okay.
Well, not one of them didn't come from the text.
So give me one that came from the text first.
You can help by volunteering to plant your trees.
Yes, so
And then
mhm.
I had one that I know about.
Can you save that one? Because you're going to use it later for your writing, okay? Save that one. Yanlet.
You can pick up trash and you can help by putting seeds for trees.
Yes, so you can pick up trash, you can plant trees. All of those are different ways that our character helped the environment around him. when we don't recycle and we don't throw and we start to litter, a lot of trash gets built up in the earth, and that doesn't really help our environment. Reducing trash and recycling helps to keep the environments clean. People may need to cut down trees to make space for buildings, and like we learned in our story, people can help by planting new trees. So today we're going to take this information that we've learned and we're going to share it. So before we get started, I want you to think of these two questions. What are some what are some ways people can harm the environment? And what are some ways people can help the environment? Turn and talk to a neighbor. I'm going to be coming around. And tell your neighbor, what are some ways that we can help the environment? What are some ways we can help?
So the way we can help the environment is
What are some ways?
not trash.
Okay.
Less there's
Lots of good talking. Alright, I heard some pretty good conversations and I even learned some new facts that I didn't know before. So, as you guys just discussed, what are ways that we can harm the environment and what are ways that we can help the environment? And Sloan had a very unique detail that she wanted to share with the class about what climate change can do to coral. Can you explain?
it's called coral bleaching,
Mm-hmm.
and it's where the coral is an animal, and it lives in like a hard kind of shell armor, and it pushes when it pushes out the color. It usually happens when the water's not at a normal temperature, or it there's plastic on it and it doesn't know what to do. It can push out its friends, but that doesn't technically mean it's dead. You can help it by making the water warm or taking the plastic off the coral.
Absolutely. So the coral, part of like our coral reef, is where lots of ocean life live. They make the coral reef their homes. And so not only can the change in climate impact the coral, but it can also cause other animals that rely on that coral to live to be harmed in the process as well. So a lot of what we do in the earth is connected. When we harm the water, it doesn't just harm the water. It harms the animals that live in the water. It harms the people that have to use that water. So everything we do is pretty connected. All right. So moving on. We have been talking a lot about writing this year. We've gone over narrative writing, we finished up opinion writing, and so because it's the last quarter of the year, we are going to go back through all the different types of writing. So today, we're going to review what informational writing is about. Who can tell me a little bit about informational writing? Think about it. Is it the same as narrative writing? Are narrative writing and informational writing the same, class?
true things about.
So, telling people true things or true facts. Yolette?
Giving them stuff that is real and not fake.
Yes, so telling people real facts that's not fake. Like a narrative story, we make up things, right? Sometimes. And we tell things that may not be true. But in informational writing, we have to tell the truth. We have to give facts. So, when we are writing informational piece, we want to inform or explain something. Informational writing has an introduction, subtopics, and a closing. When you're writing, we never want to forget our transition words because they help our flow become much, much better. All right, so this is our writing prompt for today. And I'm going to give everybody a planning sheet so that we can use the information that we've learned to write our informational piece. So, our environment changes. People can change our environment. Your job today is to write an informational paragraph about how people can harm the environment and how people can help our environment. So today, you have to include a hook. We have to, what do we do with a hook? We have to capture our audience's attention. Then we need to state our topic sentence. Tell them what we're going to be writing about. And then we need to include at least one example. So when I say at least one example, can you give more than one? Absolutely. We have to have at least one example of how humans can help the environment, and we have to have one example of how they can harm the environment. So it's not opinion. This is informational. We're teaching people how they can help the environment and how they can harm the environment. And lastly, every story, every piece needs to have a closing sentence or closing statement. Cool beans?
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at what your task is for today. All right. So at your seats, you have a informational planning sheet. You're going to use this planning sheet to make sure you get all of your ideas down on paper. So before you go to your seats, let's review ways humans can harm the environment. Give me one thing that can harm or hurt.
Chopping down. I mean, building new land when there's something you can already use that someone abandoned for.
And what happens when people have to build something new? They usually what?
Have to chop down trees.
Chopping down trees. So when we cut, this marker's not too good. Hold on. Much better. All right, when we cut trees, we harm the environment. But what's the opposite of that? If we cut down trees, how can we help the environment? Yonelette, we can grow trees. Okay. Autumn, give me a help or a harm.
We could stop litter. Like for an example, we could pick up trash because
want to include in your paragraph. So, directions. Today you're going to work on your hook, and we're also going to work on our facts. So when we hook our reader, there are 3 different ways that we've talked about, ways that we can hook our reader. We can start by asking a question. We can include an interesting fact, or we can start with a sound.